In the early years of World War II, innovation in aviation was not just a matter of pride. It was a strategic necessity. Amid the roar of engines and the glare of searchlights, a peculiar aircraft emerged in the skies of occupied Europe, an aircraft that would astonish even the most seasoned military minds. It was not the sleek metal and polished rivets that characterized German engineering, nor did it boast the latest in high-performance weaponry. Instead, this was a plane crafted largely from wood, a material that seemed almost laughably primitive for the age of modern aerial warfare. The story begins in a small workshop, far from the grand airfields and industrial complexes of the Luftwaffe. Engineers and designers, working under strict secrecy, sought to build an aircraft that could fulfill a very specific purpose: to be efficient, resourceful, and surprisingly agile. Metal was scarce, strategic alloys were reserved for heavy bombers, and the relentless Allied bombing campaigns had made traditional production a risky affair. Wood, abundant and easy to work with, became the unexpected hero of this endeavor. The plane's design was deceptively simple. Its wings were carefully layered with birch plywood, reinforced with spars that balanced lightness and structural integrity. The fuselage, constructed with similar ingenuity, incorporated glues and laminates that gave the craft surprising resilience. Despite its humble materials, the wooden aircraft could perform maneuvers that defied its appearance, showcasing an elegance and efficiency that left many military observers incredulous. However, the true genius of the project was not just in the materials or the aerodynamics. It was in the vision that drove its creation. The engineers were pioneers of necessity, forced to innovate under extreme pressure. Their work reflected a deep understanding of flight mechanics and an uncanny ability to maximize what seemed limited. Each rivet replaced with a wooden joint, each fuselage panel precisely shaped and glued, was a testament to their craft. Word of this remarkable aircraft eventually reached the upper echelons of the Luftwaffe, including Hermann Göring himself. Known for his obsession with German air power and his envy of Allied innovations, Göring became fascinated by the wooden plane. Reports suggested that he marveled at its efficiency, even as he reportedly turned green and yellow with envy at the thought that his own engineers had not conceived such an elegant solution. The wooden wonder was more than a plane. It was a symbol of ingenuity triumphing over scarcity, of creativity rising amid the pressures of war. By the time the first prototypes took flight, the wooden aircraft had already cemented its place in aviation history. It defied expectations, challenged conventional wisdom, and demonstrated that sometimes the most remarkable innovations emerge from the simplest ideas. Its birth was not merely a technical achievement. It was a story of resourcefulness, audacity, and the relentless pursuit of excellence, even in the most constrained and perilous circumstances of wartime Europe. While the wooden wonder was quietly taking shape in Allied-controlled territories, high above in the corridors of German power, a different obsession was brewing. The Luftwaffe's top brass, led by Hermann Göring, had long prided themselves on their engineering prowess. Yet, when news of the innovative wooden aircraft reached them, it ignited a mix of admiration, disbelief, and, most notably, envy. For Göring, it was not enough to simply observe. He demanded replication, a German version that could rival or even surpass the original. The obsession with copying stemmed from a cultural and strategic mindset deeply ingrained in the Third Reich. German engineers were renowned for precision and technical mastery, but there was also a pervasive belief that foreign innovations were inherently inferior until proven otherwise. The wooden aircraft challenged this assumption. Its clever use of materials, simplicity of construction, and remarkable performance forced German planners to confront an uncomfortable truth. Ingenuity did not always spring from metal and factories alone. From 1943 onward, secret projects were launched to reverse-engineer the plane. Engineers scoured intelligence reports, intercepted photographs, and, when possible, recovered wreckage from downed aircraft. Each attempt to replicate the wooden wonder exposed the limits of German materials and wartime logistics. High-ranking officers pushed for faster results, often ignoring the delicate craftsmanship required to make would perform like metal in the skies. Reports indicate that Göring personally monitored progress. According to historical accounts, he frequently compared prototypes to the original design, expressing frustration at even the smallest deviations. "If they can do it, so can we," he reportedly insisted. Yet, despite the best efforts of Germany's most skilled engineers, the copies were invariably flawed. They lacked the subtle balance of weight and flexibility, and their performance fell short of the graceful, agile flight demonstrated by the original. This relentless drive to copy, rather than innovate, reflected a broader wartime pattern. Germany had poured enormous resources into reproducing enemy technologies, be it tanks, aircraft, or rockets, often at the expense of original experimentation. The wooden plane became a symbol of this obsession, highlighting both the ambition and the limitations of German industry during the final years of the war. Ultimately, the project served as a cautionary tale. Göring's envy-fueled drive for duplication underscored a crucial lesson. Innovation cannot be forced merely by wealth, power, or will. Sometimes it arises where least expected, often from simplicity, scarcity, and the audacity to challenge conventional methods. The wooden wonder remained unrivaled, a quiet triumph over those who sought to copy it without understanding the ingenuity that had birthed it. As the idea of the wooden aircraft transitioned from sketches to reality, the workshop buzzed with quiet urgency. Unlike the gleaming factories of Germany, this small facility relied not on mass production, but on ingenuity, precision, and patience. Engineers, carpenters, and gluing specialists worked side by side, transforming simple sheets of wood into the framework of a fully functional plane. Every panel, every spar, every joint carried the weight of innovation and the hope of outmaneuvering the limitations imposed by war. Birch plywood, chosen for its balance of lightness and strength, formed the core of the wings and fuselage. The designers employed layered laminations, a technique that distributed stress and allowed the wooden structure to flex under aerodynamic forces without cracking. Unlike conventional metal aircraft, which relied on rigid frames and rivets, the wooden plane demanded an almost sculptural approach. Engineers cut and shaped each piece meticulously, ensuring that every curve contributed to both stability and lift. Glue played a surprisingly critical role. Special adhesives, developed to withstand temperature extremes and vibrations, bonded layers of wood with remarkable strength. Even minor miscalculations could compromise the plane's performance or risk structural failure in flight. Workshops often smelled of resin and varnish as craftsmen spent hours sanding, shaping, and gluing, transforming what was once raw material into a machine capable of defying expectations. The fuselage, though deceptively simple in appearance, was a marvel of design. Internal supports were arranged to minimize weight while maximizing resilience. Every component was carefully considered for its aerodynamic impact. Lightweight control surfaces, reinforced with strategic wooden ribs, allowed for responsive maneuvering, while the engine mount, adapted to the plane's unique structure, maintained balance and vibration control. Flight tests revealed the brilliance of these designs. The wooden plane could climb swiftly, turn tightly, and glide smoothly, all feats that left observers astonished. What appeared fragile and rudimentary on the ground proved surprisingly capable in the air. The simplicity of its construction, combined with the ingenuity of its engineers, turned scarcity into an advantage. As word spread, it became clear that this was not merely a workaround for material shortages. It was a genuine innovation. Pilots, initially skeptical, began praising its handling and performance. The wooden plane was nimble yet stable, efficient yet strong. Its successful flights marked a turning point, demonstrating that creativity and resourcefulness could produce machines that rivaled, and sometimes exceeded, those built with more conventional means. By the time the first fully assembled aircraft lifted from the runway, the wooden plane had already become a legend among its creators. It stood as proof that even in a world consumed by industrial might and technological warfare, ingenuity, patience, and a deep understanding of materials could yield extraordinary results. In every panel of wood and drop of glue, the vision of its designers had taken shape, quiet, unassuming, yet profoundly revolutionary. Despite their technical expertise and industrial power, German engineers faced an unexpected challenge when attempting to replicate the wooden aircraft. What seemed deceptively simple on paper, layers of wood glued together, shaped with care, proved nearly impossible to reproduce under wartime pressures. Each attempt exposed the gap between imitation and innovation, highlighting the ingenuity of the original creators. From 1943 onward, secret laboratories and workshops were mobilized to reverse engineer the plane. Prototypes were assembled with meticulous attention, yet the results were consistently disappointing. Engineers struggled with the unique combination of materials and design techniques used in the original aircraft. Wood, while abundant, required precise layering, gluing, and shaping, processes that German factories, focused on speed and volume, could not easily replicate. Even minor deviations in the thickness of plywood or the angle of a spar compromised flight performance, leading to instability, reduced lift, and structural weaknesses. Hermann Göring, reportedly both fascinated and frustrated by these setbacks, demanded faster results. Historical accounts suggest he personally inspected prototypes and often expressed disbelief at their shortcomings. "We have the best engineers in the world," he is said to have exclaimed, "yet we cannot match this simple machine?" His envy grew as the original plane continued to outperform every German attempt, proving that brilliance often lies not in resources or rank, but in creativity and careful craftsmanship. Moreover, Germany's obsession with replication diverted resources from other critical projects. Skilled craftsmen were pulled from essential production lines, and precious materials were allocated to prototypes that repeatedly failed. Despite their technical prowess, engineers could not recreate the delicate balance of weight, flexibility, and aerodynamics achieved by the original designers. The wooden plane had been more than a machine. It was a carefully calibrated system, perfected through trial, error, and ingenuity. Attempts to copy it mechanically, without understanding its underlying principles, were doomed from the start. The failure to replicate underscored a broader wartime lesson. Innovation cannot be forced by imitation alone. Germany's industrial might could produce tanks, aircraft, and weapons in staggering quantities, but originality, born from necessity, imagination, and careful adaptation, remained elusive. The wooden aircraft's success, contrasted with Germany's repeated failures, became emblematic of this reality. In the end, the German copies were abandoned, and the original design remained unmatched. The story of the failed replication serves as a testament to the creative spirit of its inventors and a cautionary tale for those who believe that power and resources alone can substitute for vision. The wooden wonder continued to soar, a quiet triumph over envy, industrial arrogance, and the hubris of imitation. The wooden aircraft, born out of necessity and crafted with ingenuity, did more than astonish its creators. It left a lasting legacy that would echo through the annals of aviation history. While German engineers struggled in vain to replicate it, the original plane demonstrated a fundamental truth. True innovation cannot be copied without understanding the vision behind it. Hermann Göring's obsession with duplication, fueled by envy, inadvertently highlighted the remarkable achievement of the designers who had turned simple materials into a masterpiece of flight. In the years following the war, aviation historians and engineers examined the wooden aircraft with admiration. Its design showcased a rare combination of simplicity, efficiency, and performance that challenged conventional assumptions about materials and engineering. The project became a case study in resourcefulness, how constraints can drive creativity, and how limitations, when approached with intelligence and care, can yield extraordinary results. Even decades later, flight schools and engineering programs referenced the wooden plane as an example of adaptive thinking under pressure. Germany's failed attempts to replicate the aircraft served as a cautionary tale. While the Reich possessed unmatched industrial capacity and highly trained engineers, their inability to match a design born of scarcity revealed a critical lesson. Ingenuity often resides in the minds of those forced to think differently. The wooden plane was not merely a product of technical skill. It was the embodiment of vision, patience, and an intuitive understanding of materials. Its success lay in knowing when to innovate and when to embrace simplicity, a principle that German factories, focused on mass production, could not replicate. The legacy extended beyond engineering. The story of Göring's envy and Germany's futile replication efforts became emblematic of a broader human truth. Innovation and creativity cannot be coerced, bought, or demanded. They emerge from curiosity, perseverance, and a willingness to experiment. The wooden plane's triumph over imitation underscored the idea that sometimes the most remarkable achievements arise not from wealth, power, or resources, but from the audacity to see possibility where others see limitation. Today, the wooden aircraft is remembered not only as a technical marvel of its era, but as a symbol of resilience and imagination. Its flights, quietly performed in a world torn by conflict, continue to inspire engineers, historians, and storytellers alike. The envious attempts to copy it, though destined to fail, amplified its significance, reminding the world that true brilliance cannot simply be stolen. It must be understood, nurtured, and, above all, created. The wooden wonder endures as a testament to the ingenuity of its makers, a legacy that no envy, no industrial might, and no replication effort could ever diminish.